Welcome to episode 2 of Chambers Chatter. I'm Laura Chambers-Bavelis.
And I'm Shae Chambers-Helms. We're so excited to have you back. Today, we are so excited to have Jerry Stocks with us today. Hey, Jerry, how are you?
I am fine, and I can't tell you how thrilled I am to be included in this venture of you all's.
Oh, we are so excited to have you. So let's go back and let's just start at the beginning. Where did you grow up in Beaufort?
Well, I was born on Paris Island. I was very fortunate because back then there was no hospital in Beaufort. We didn't have a hospital until after World War II.
Really?
Yeah.
Did not know that.
Wow. And out of curiosity, was the hospital that opened, was it the Naval Hospital or was it Beaufort Memorial that opened first?
Beaufort Memorial opened right after the war, as did the Naval Hospital also. They realized with the recruits on Paris Island and what have you, they needed, more medical facilities. And so I think the Naval Hospital opened probably a year, the one in Beaufort. See, I was born in the Naval Hospital on Paris Island, but it was an old, World War II, or not even before that, probably Civil War. I was born on Paris Island and lived there until I was 2 years old.
Okay, and where did you move to once you were 2?
I moved to, on the Point, on, what is that little street? Do you know the name of it? Is it Port Republic?
I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah. On the corner of Port Republic and East.
Okay.
Yeah, East. No, not East Street. Yeah, East Street.
Oh, wonderful. So tell us, how was growing up on the Point?
Well, I didn't stay there really very long. But the one thing that I do remember, one thing, my little sister was born also, but she was born in Walterboro. Back then, you were born all over the place because we had no hospital here. And we lived across the street from your grandfather, Hank Chambers. He was a little boy at the time. And when my mother passed away, he came to her funeral. And he came up to me, of course, to offer his condolences. And he told me that he used to push me in a swing in the yard when I was 2 years old. Yeah. Yeah.
That is so small world, sorry.
When we had to move from that house, we moved over in what is now called the Old Commons, which was on King Street, and I live on King Street now. But not, of course, in the same house.
Oh, my God. That is coming full circle. I love that. So how was growing up in the Commons? What was that like?
Well, it was fun. Everybody had lots of servants back in those days. And so my nursemaid used to take me out in the afternoon and walk downtown. And I remember the riverboat coming in. The riverboat used to run between here and Savannah.
Oh, that's
Oh, my gosh.
And there'd be people, getting on and off. So we go down there and meet the boat coming in.
So the riverboat, was that just like a ferry to and from, or was it like a party boat?
I can't remember.
Okay.
I think it was probably more like a ferry.
Okay.
And it only went from Beaufort to Savannah, typically.
As far as I know, they called it the Savannah Riverboat.
Okay, so probably then.
Yeah.
That is so fun.
And it was in that alley that runs between Kilwins and the pizza place, or the tea shop, whatever's in there. Anyway, that's where we go down that alley, and that's where the boat would be.
And the wall to the water was right behind those restaurants right there, correct? At that time? Because the park wasn't developed.
There was not a...
It was but large enough space for, people to get on and off. And for us, of course, as a child, I can remember thinking, oh, it's way down there. But no, the park, of course, was not developed then. And I guess the wall was right up next to it. I never really thought about that.
Yeah.
Huh. So yeah, I'm trying to think because I think there was just a parking lot right there. So the boat, you would just kind of come in and get, oh, that is so did you get on the boat?
No, never did.
No, okay. Just gotten to watch it come in and out.
Yeah.
I love
It was
that.
a way to entertain a little girl.
Oh,
What else were you able to do downtown growing up?
Oh, well, I went to the movie to see The Wizard of Oz, and Beth Kennedy took me, and apparently I screamed so loud when the Wicked Witch came on that she stuffed my mouth with a handkerchief.
Oh, gosh.
And took me home.
And for those that don't know, where was the movie theater?
It was right on the corner. Well, what is there now? One of the carriage rides. You know, where the dentist office, well, you all don't even remember when Dr. Jaime Lipset practiced dentistry. But that little building that kind of sits in the middle, as you come down Charles Street, there's a little house right in there. That was Dr. Jaime Lipset's dental office. But next door to that, with the street in between, was where the first Breeze Theater was. And it's funny you ask about that because I just did a paper on the Smith brothers. And it was called A Taste of Old Beaufort. And the Smith brothers were identical twins, and they brought the movie theaters to Beaufort.
Oh, wow.
And that was where the first one was. And then when they needed a larger space, they took over the bank, what had been a bank.
Was that Panini's or?
Panini's.
Okay. Wow, how cool would that be to have a movie theater back downtown again? That would be so cool.
Well, you know, and I think this is interesting. In the information that I had about the Smith brothers approaching some of the Waterhouse to build, and it mentioned that they had all just come back from World War II. They said that to build a theater to seat, I don't know, 150 people maybe, they had to go out over the water. And I thought, I wonder if that's where Hank Chambers got his idea of building the waterfront park.
That is fascinating.
Isn't that something?
That is.
Huh. So do you have memories of going to the movie theater in the bank?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that is very cool. So when did that transition from the movie theater into a restaurant? That was just over time, or was that?
Well, when the television came out, and of course, people, more or less stopped going to the movie. I can't remember when the movies closed down, but it did close, and then it just sat there until Mr. Mix bought it and went to restore it. And do y'all know the story about the pillars on the building? You know, those big pillars that are across the front? Well, when they made it into a movie theater, they cut those pillars into fourths, and they dumped them in the river. What? And Mr. Mix found them and put them back on the building.
No, are you kidding me?
Oh my gosh, I wonder what their reasoning was. They just didn't like the looks of it?
Well, they didn't. For the movie theater, didn't need the columns.
Right.
Yeah. In fact, they made it. You went down an aisle, like into the body of the theater, but there were little businesses on either side. Fox Jewelers was on one side, and I've forgotten what the other side was. But they have, pictures. Do you all know about the collection that we have in the library of all these old Beaufort things?
I know of the collection. I have not gone through it all yet, but that's part of as we do this, yes.
Yeah, well, Grace Cordial was head of that. and she had just a small group come, and I think she did it 3 times because she could only take so many people. But she took us all through it and showed us the archives. So it's fascinating, and I'm just so glad that you all are doing this, and and we have that at the library.
That's so fun. Oh my goodness. Any other major childhood events, things stand out in your mind? What was your favorite festival as a child?
They had that festival in Charleston, and we always had a Miss Beaufort, and she always rode in the parade.
Oh, cool. I love that. Were you ever a Miss Beaufort?
No.
Okay.
No, I was not.
Oh, too funny. Okay, so moving from childhood, kind of going more into adult life, I've heard you were a sewer and needlework. You did all your needlework, and yeah, tell us about that journey.
I grew up here in Beaufort, and then my first husband was in the Marine Corps, so we were transferred to Camp Lejeune, and then to Albany, Georgia, and that's where I met my second husband, who brought me back to Beaufort. And meanwhile, I've always loved smock dresses for little girls. And there was a company, I don't know where they were located, but they had the clothes hand smocked down in South America. It was called Polly Flinders. And so my older girls had worn Polly Flinders dresses. And then when 14 years later I had another girl, I went back to looking for Polly Flinders dresses, and they just were not good. And so I decided that I needed to learn how to do this. And so I started in on the smocking even before I came back to Beaufort. But once we moved back here, and I started full-time doing the smocking, and I opened, and then everybody, of course, my contemporaries, Beth Grace and that crowd, they all wanted to learn how to smock. So, and then it was, well, where do we buy the supplies? So I opened a shop, and it was called Mother Hubbard's Cupboard.
Okay. What was it called?
Mother Hubbard's Cupboard.
Oh my God.
Where was that?
We started out, well, you all don't know where Phillips Flower Shop was either. Across from the Methodist Church, there is a house that has a shop in the basement. And Mr. Longo, I don't know if you know him, he has a junk store there now. But anyway, when Mrs. Phillips lived in the house, her husband built her a shop underneath, and it was a florist shop. Of course, everybody in Beaufort knew about her because all the boys had to buy the corsages and boutonnieres and, all that. And then she did all the weddings, too. So anyway, it was a famous shop.
She was the go-to person of town, it sounds like.
Yeah. And so when I decided that I needed to open a smocking shop, she had, by that time, no longer had her store in there. And so I asked her if I could be there. And I did. And I was there for about a year, I guess, teaching classes and selling fabric and that kind of thing. And I didn't start designing on my own right then. And I took in a partner, and then the place flooded because it was, a basement. And so my partner said, I know Mr. Hendricks said, let's see what he has to offer. And because he had rentals all over town. And so we moved on the corner of Charles and Craven.
Okay.
It's a white 2-story house.
Yes.
And it's 4 apartments. And we just had the one side apartment. But my daughter was going to the Eleanor Christensen School, And she would be, dropped off at home or dropped off at the shop. And I said something to her one day about, how did she feel about any of it? And she said, well, I don't like coming to that shop, and I don't like coming home to an empty house. And I thought, what am I doing? So I decided I would sell to my partner and go into the wholesale business. And that's when I started doing the design work.
Wow.
And I did smocking and heirloom sewing. And then I got into duplicate stitch, which is taking a design and graphing it and then stitching it onto a sweater. And the sweaters are so totally different now. But back then they were a nice knit. And you could, embroidery a knit stitch on top of a knit stitch was what it, boiled down to. And what I would do is the very first one that I did, I had some pretty fabric that I had gotten. And I asked Abby if she wanted me to make her something from the fabric. And she said, not that tacky stuff. But it was a ribbon going down like that with a big bow, and then there were a couple of flowers. So the very first sweater that I did was I duplicate stitched a bow right here, and then a flower on either side, and that was the beginning of that.
Was it a specific flower? I'm curious if you remember. No. Okay.
No. Something that probably to grow in, a vine. I can't think what it would be called. But anyway, the duplicate stitch, it had been around for a long, long time because it was used in England to darn sweaters. And but it became very, very popular, and it grew huge amounts. And that's why I wrote so many books with the designs in it. And I guess probably that was about the time when the popularity seemed to sort of, things just will grow quick, and then it reaches that point and it just sort of stays there. And when I decided to become a flight attendant.
How old were you when you became a flight attendant?
58.
Wild. So cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it was something that I'd always wanted to do. But first off, my father had said that's no career. And you had to be a nurse.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, the first 6 flight attendants were all nurses.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Even so you said originally you were a flight attendant for a charter, and you had to be a nurse for charter planes too.
Well, there wasn't such a thing as charter flight. Okay. Yes, and this was way back when people first started flying on airplanes. And then there was one lady, I think she was a nurse, and she went to the president of whatever the company was back then and told him that they needed people on the plane in case of an emergency. So he said, well, we'll give it a try. And I think she flew the first flight, and then he decided that was a good idea. So the first 6 that he hired, and then after that, of course, up to a certain point, they had to be nurses. But then they decided that they, didn't need to be nurses anymore. They could be just regular people. But anyway, it was something I wanted to do, and my father said no. And then, once I got married and had small children, and it was like, you had to live where you fly wherever the airport was. And Lord knows nowadays you can live anywhere in the world and be, part of an airline.
Mm-hmm. Wow. What was that like, starting a whole new career at the age of 58?
Well, it was, like I say, I guess I had done the needlework for 13 years. And of course, I had flown a lot during that time. And I even got to fly to Australia to teach needlework.
So cool.
Yeah, and Canada also. And but it's like anything else. After 13 years, you sort of burn out. And so it was welcome to become a flight attendant. And the first company that I worked for was a charter company out of Savannah. And so they owned, I think, I don't remember now, but maybe 8 airplanes. And so a company could hire the whole airplane with a cruise. And so that's what happened. This company in England, who was a vacation company, who also owned 6 airplanes, one of their planes was down. And one of the interesting things I found out in England, it didn't matter if you lived in a hovel, you had a nice vacation. You paid for it for the whole year, and then you would fly down to the islands in the Mediterranean, and it was just amazing to me, some of the people didn't look very presentable that would get on the plane, but they would go into some exotic spot. I'd only been working a month, and what the company in England hired one of our planes, and we had to fly like around the clock. So we had to have 3 crews, because you can only fly, for 8 hours. And so 3 crews of us got on the airplane in Savannah, Georgia, and flew to Stansted Airport in England.
Wow.
Yeah. And then they put us up in a hotel while we were there. And so it was a constant party.
Living your best life.
1 month in, just going, I love it.
And of course, that was my first taste of being in England. And I had a good friend that I had known from the smocking and sewing that had moved to England. So I got to see Kathleen and have a good visit with her. And and as far as, a career change, it just came naturally. I mean, I just loved every minute of it.
How long did you do it for?
For 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I came home to be a full-time grandmother because my daughter was working for Delta. And I raised those 2 little boys until the oldest was 6 years old. And by that time, my daughter took early retirement from Delta, and she came home to be a mama.
That's super special.
But I loved every minute of that. And then I started painting.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Are you still painting today?
I'm not really, because my husband, as you know, is 100 years old. And he has a lot of doctor's appointments. Now, he's still driving. And if I have somewhere I have to go, he can drive himself to a doctor's appointment.
That's incredible.
He will ask me to, go with him to a doctor's appointment. So, there are only so many hours in the day because you've got to cook and grocery shop and, all the normal things that you all know about doing. And then to, do what he needs you to do. And then, like my day today, I'm on the board of the MAA School. Do you all know about the MAA School?
I know of the school, but please share with everyone what it is so they know.
Well, it's a school that was started by Rachel Crane Mather right after the Civil War. And of all things, she was a white lady. This is what I found so amazing. And this was a black family. I mean, black children. She saw them running around with no supervision and maybe not a home and clothes or what have you. And and she got sent down here by the Missionary Society, Methodist, I think it was, from up north. And when she told them she wanted to start a school for black girls, they didn't approve. And so they dropped her funding. Well, apparently she had money of her own. And so she bought the 20 acres that is the technical college's own now. And she started that school.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And where is it in Beaufort?
It's where the technical college is.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah. When the school closed, which I think was 1969, I'm not sure how the transfer was, whether she just gave the property to the state or the state purchased it from her estate.
Wow. That's incredible.
But it was an amazing school. And if you grew up here, you saw those girls walking to church from Riverboat Road all the way downtown. And that just impressed me so. And I'm, very interested in anything that was in Beaufort and the history of. And so when they have what they call the bell ringing every year. And the bell used to be rang every hour when the girls were there on campus. And it was when, announcing the new change of classes or time to go to bed, then time to get up. And so they have what's called the bell ringing. Still have it every year. And a lot of the alumni come back for the bell ringing.
Oh, that's really special. I'm not familiar with this at all. That is.
And I read in the Beaufort Gazette that they were going to have one. And so I decided to go because I had just always admired those girls. So, and I went and, made friends with some of the ladies. And so I've been going every year since. And then when they formed a group called Friends of Mather, I asked if I could be a member, and they said yes. And then more recently, that has evolved into them trying to have a museum there and that kind of thing. And so they asked me if I would be on the board, and I said I would. And so I went to a board meeting at 10 o'clock this morning, and then I came to here. And then at 4 o'clock, I'm supposed to go to Benevolent Society.
Wow.
And then at 6 o'clock this evening, the Old Commons neighborhood is having a meeting, and they're having pizza. So,
Oh, how fun.
I don't have to cook today. So.
It's incredible how active you are
Yes.
still in the community. I think that is absolutely beautiful.
I think it shows how much you love Beaufort, for
Well,
sure.
I do.
And how
And
special.
more recently, we had a luncheon. There's a lady judge from Hampton. I had to stop and think. And she's on the board of the Mather, but she always participates by Zoom because, living up there.
Right.
But she is one smart lady, and she has done gratis all the groundwork for what Mather needs to become an entity, so to speak. And I mean, just, people like that, I just admire them so. And to be on a board with somebody like that is just amazing.
Truly.
Yeah.
Truly.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
So, and I know, we had a luncheon recently. Actually, it was more of a, we call brunch between breakfast and lunch. I don't know what you call between lunch and supper, but anyway.
Happy hour.
Yeah, happy hour. There we go.
Well, we did have a little Prosecco.
There you go.
Anyway, we had a luncheon for her, but most of these people don't drive after dark. And so I'm lucky that I still can. But, everybody reaches a certain age that you just, you can't see very well. But anyway, they said they wanted people to go around the room at this luncheon or afternoon happy hour and say how they felt about, serving on the board. And I said, I grew up in Beaufort. And I said, I watched these girls walk to church. And I said, to me, it is so important. And I want to know that the history of the school is preserved.
That's so special. That is really special. Really special. Thank you for that. And I know you're going to do an amazing job. So as we start kind of wrapping this up, is there anything you would want to tell younger generations about helping to preserve the importance of this history and everything and what you're doing?
Well, I'm serving on the board of MAA. I have a therapy dog, and I take my dog to Paris Island and visit the wounded recruits. And then I also go to Springer, which is across the street from the Y. And I feel like I'm, helping the older generation to be happy. And then, those young boys out at Paris Island, they need to have some home type of things. And it's the best feeling in the world. And we had, I don't know whether y'all want to hear this or not. You can cut it out if you don't want to.
Please share.
But I formed an organization called the Sage Society. Do you all know about the Clover Club?
I don't. No. Please tell us.
I feel like we're learning a lot.
I know.
I'm not a member of the Clover Club, but a friend of mine's mother was. And so I, as a teenager, got to, attend some of the meetings and everything. But it started right after the Civil War, and they formed the first library in Beaufort. And they meet once a week, and they have a topic that is assigned, and they have a high tea with the silver and the china and all of that. And so when this friend of mine approached me and said, she had just moved to Beaufort, and she said, do you know about the Clover Club? And I said, yes, it's a lovely organization. And she said, well, do you think we could do something like that? And I said, yes, we can. But I said, we're not going to meet once a week, and we're not going to have food, and we're not going to have an assigned assignment. And anyway, so there were three of us that formed it. And it's 10 years old now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And has a great membership. And so we always have a business meeting in January. And at the business meeting, they went around the room and said what their was on their list of things to do but had not gotten to yet. And one of the ladies said that she wanted to have a therapy dog.
Oh.
And everybody turned around and looked at me and said, well, Jerry's already done that.
I love that. Oh, my goodness. So how often do y'all meet?
The Sage
Club.
once a month.
Okay. Oh, that's...
And what's the mission behind your organization?
To read and foster the knowledge and keep on learning.
That's beautiful.
And that's what we were talking earlier about the Breeze Theater. That was what the paper that I just gave was a taste of old Beaufort. And it intermingled the Smith brothers and Kate Gleason. And do you all know about Kate Gleason?
The park right by the hospital, correct?
Right.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But she, of course, you know Larry Rowland, Dr. Larry Rowland. His mother was Kate Gleason's secretary. Kate Gleason was the first lady engineer in the United States. And
I did not know.
And
I did not know that either. Wow.
She built the Gold Eagle. I don't know if you know what the...
Oh, don't either. Can you explain? No. Can you explain that? I don't know.
Well, the Gold Eagle, you know where Bay Street dead ends? Yeah. Okay. And there's a lovely home there now. But that home from the water back to the corner, there was a house there, one of the old fine homes. And
Are you talking about the house that they knocked down? Are you talking about the house that was knocked down to build the current house?
no,
Okay.
but that's where the Gold Eagle was. But the house sat here, and the water's here, and the street is back here. So she built this house, and she built out from that house, and built a big Barney building, and it was like a lobby, and it had a turret on the side. Very like anything Beaufort. I mean, if we'd had the Historic Beaufort Foundation back then, it would have never happened. But she, and the original owner of the house was Henry DeSaussure, and he was Secretary of the Treasury during George Washington's presidency.
Wow.
And he minted the first gold coins, or had them minted. And so that's why she named the place the Gold Eagle Tavern.
Oh my God.
So fascinating.
And originally, the house was there, and she just, like I say, built out from it. But it was a hotel, and it was a restaurant.
Wow.
And it was just part of Beaufort. We had like to have wedding receptions there, and go there on Sunday to eat and that kind of thing. And the old house eventually burned down, and then she built something back up from that. But what she did was, with Larry Rowland's mother being her secretary, she came to Beaufort and got very interested in Beaufort. And that was when the Depression was, going on. And she figured if she did enough building of things that she could keep people working. And the bank where the Panini's is had to close. But she deposited $25,000 in the other bank, and that allowed it to stay open.
Oh my God.
So she literally saved Beaufort from the Depression.
I do too. I feel like her
gosh.
history needs to be more known.
Yeah, yeah. She was something, and she built she didn't build the anchorage, but she owned it, and then she owned this very interesting house on. Oh gosh, I can't think of the name of the street, but it's off of Depot Road, and it's an old house back in there. And Gold Eagle had what they called the dairy back in there, and she called that 100 Pines, which was what this area originally was known as.
If anyone that's around our age that wants to get more involved and learn about the history and stuff of Beaufort, where would you recommend them to go, and how can they get involved?
Well, the Historic Beaufort Foundation, of course, yeah. And then I'm not so sure about the Beaufort History Museum. I haven't been there recently, and I don't think there's a lot in there, unfortunately.
Okay. I haven't been in there.
The History Museum at Paris Island is good, I've heard, and you can volunteer to be a docent there. And the Beaufort Historical Society. And then the library is constantly having lectures. And I go to all of those that I can.
Mm-hmm. Good to know. Good to know.
No.
Yeah.
So, and you can be a docent for the tour of homes. And then of course the tour of all brass every other year.
I've been dying to go to that one. I have not been yet.
Well, it's fabulous. I had the opportunity to go there when I was 11 years old.
Wow.
My godfather was the postmaster in Yemassee, and so he knew all the caretakers. That's when all the northern people, owned the properties, and he knew the caretakers at all those places, and so he knew the caretaker at All Brass, and so he let us come and see it.
That is so special. Looking at it then versus now, are there any major changes?
Well, it's being taken care of.
Yeah.
When I first came back to Beaufort from Georgia, the house was on tour, and the original owner's daughter owned it then, and it was in bad shape. I mean, it was just there. And then, this is a funny story. Zarmadas from Greenville had lived in the Frank Lloyd Wright house in Greenville. There are only two in South Carolina.
Right.
And so she wanted to go to the All Brass. And she was coming down from Greenville with Sabette Sanders, who's part of the tomato family. And Sabette said, Zerma wants to see All Brass. I said, well, you just can't drive up there. I said, that's a private piece of property. So after they got here, I said, well, did you see Old Brass? She said, yeah. She said, we just drove right up and walked in. And so we were going, my husband and I were going to Charleston the next day. And I said, would you like to see All Brass? This is an opportunity. And he said, yes. And so we drove up and opened the door and walked in.
Oh my gosh. Just
It
like
was
that.
just sitting there.
Wow.
Yeah. That's incredible. So until Joel Silver bought it and totally redid it, it was just gone down the hill. But it's beautiful now.
Yeah, it
So,
looks peaceful.
But to go to the Overland Trust and volunteer to be a docent, because the tickets are over $200 now.
Yeah. It's a good idea.
Jerry, we cannot thank you enough for sharing this incredible wealth of knowledge on Beaufort and your love for our hometown. We're so happy to have you here.
I know.
Well,
I can
thank
keep
you.
going.
I know. I feel like we could make this keep going.
I didn't know that I was going to have so much to say.
Love it.
But you all have been very helpful in asking the right kind of questions.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for coming. Maybe we'll have a part 2.
Yes. We appreciate it so much.
Continue the
Oh,
stories.
you are more than welcome.